20,000 years is an incomprehensibly long stretch of time. Civilizations rise and crumble. Stars age and die. Entire species evolve, flourish, and fade into extinction. But in the galactic archives of the Valtherian Collective, one date was circled in red, not with celebration but with uncertainty. The date of humanity's final transmission. 2 centuries before our story begins, an event had shaken the galaxy to its core. The humans, that brief, volatile species from the outer rim, had simply vanished. No distress calls. No final messages. One day, their trading posts fell silent. Their ships stopped appearing at neutral stations. Their scientists ceased publishing their radical theories. And within a generation, most of the galaxy had begun to forget them entirely. The Valtherians, a species obsessed with order and historical documentation, labeled it the Great Silence. The younger races, those who came after, barely registered it as anything more than a footnote in their databases. Humans, after all, had never quite fit into galactic society. They were too unpredictable, too emotional, too willing to sacrifice themselves for abstract concepts like honor, or love, or the freedom of strangers they'd never met. By the standards of a galaxy that measured intelligence in computational power and resources, humanity's absence was insignificant. That was the prevailing opinion, anyway, until the day the ship appeared. Came without warning. The vessel emerged from a fold in spacetime near the Threshold Nebula, moving with a precision that immediately caught the attention of every monitoring station in 1,000 light-years. The Cardathi system, home to a prosperous trade hub, was the first to pick it up on their long-range sensors. Station Commander Treshael, a Kthar with 3 eyes and a mechanical third arm, stared at the readings in disbelief. The ship's design was ancient, impossibly ancient. The metallic composition of its hull didn't match anything in the current database. But the signature did match something archived so deep in the historical records that it took their AI 17 minutes to find it. The markings were human. "That's impossible," whispered Specialist Kren, a younger Kthar working at the communications console. "Humans have been gone for how long?" 20,314 years, Treshael replied. His primary eye never leaving the monitor. "And that ship's design signature is from before they vanished." Within hours, the news had spread across the local networks. A ghost ship, humanity's ghost ship, military vessels from 7 different species mobilized. The Karen Dominion sent a patrol squadron. The Vex Collective dispatched their finest tactical team. Even the reclusive Silicon Mines, whose algorithms governed most of the galactic financial systems, began running predictive models on what this could mean. The prevailing theory, shared across 1,000 research stations and governmental chambers, was clear. This was a derelict. An unmanned vessel, lost in some temporal anomaly, finally spitting back out of the void after millennia in transit. There was no logical reason to expect anything else. And that assumption would be their first mistake. The message came on all channels simultaneously, without any traditional hailing protocol. It wasn't encoded or encrypted. It wasn't even technically correct by modern standards. But it was clear. "This is the UNSC Aurora," the voice said. It was human, unmistakably, achingly human. Deep, steady, with an accent that hadn't been heard across the galaxy in 20,000 years. "We've been gone a long time. We're coming home." In the Cardathi Control Center, Treshael's 3 eyes widened. The mechanical arm trembled with uncertainty. What followed was impossible to ignore. The Aurora didn't respond to hails in a military fashion. Instead, a small shuttle detached from the main vessel and began broadcasting something that made no sense to the assembled collective intelligence. Art, music, photographs, a visual diary of 200 centuries, compressed into a single transmission. Images flooded the galactic networks before any governing body could suppress them. Humans had been there, somewhere in the cosmos, but not in any known region. The footage showed them establishing colonies on moons that shouldn't exist, building cities inside asteroids, creating ecosystems on worlds that the combined resources of the collective would have deemed uninhabitable. There was a moment in the transmission. A simple image. A human woman, ancient by any standard but with clear, focused eyes, standing before a garden she had grown herself in the vacuum of space. Behind her, the curve of an impossible blue world, somehow thriving beneath protective domes of a material unknown to the galaxy. "We left because you asked us to," she said directly into the camera. Her voice was quiet, but every word cut through the static of 20,000 years. "You feared us, our unpredictability, our tendency toward what you called irrationality. So we went to find a place where those things weren't weaknesses." Another image. A human man, younger, holding the hand of a Carti child. Not a human child. Carti. An alien child. "But we never forgot the people we left behind. We never stopped being human, which means we never stopped caring about those we left, even when they stopped caring about us." The next transmission changed everything. The Aurora announced it was carrying passengers. 2 million humans, preserved through means the galaxy didn't yet understand. Scientists, artists, engineers, children, entire families. They wanted, the message explained, to return home, to share what they'd learned, to see if the galaxy they'd left behind had changed. If perhaps now, after 20,000 years, there might be room for humans again. The collective's response was instantaneous and, in retrospect, entirely predictable. "This is a threat," declared the Karen military. 2 million potential combatants descending on known space. Quarantine protocols now. The Vex Collective's leadership was more cautious. Unknown biotechnology. Potential contamination vector. All human vessels must maintain minimum distance until full analysis is complete. But the Aurora didn't deviate. It didn't arm itself. It didn't defend against the blockade vessels that formed in its path. Instead, it sent something unexpected. Medical supplies. Not for the humans, for a plague that had been ravaging the Cardathi outer colonies for 3 years. The collective's own scientists had made no progress. The humans had solved it in 48 hours, using data gathered from the broadcasts they'd been monitoring since their return. A single ship. An extinct species. Saving lives. Then came the second transmission. Not a message this time. Evidence. Complete genetic maps of dozens of sentient species, including cure pathways for 17 known terminal conditions. The humans had compiled them over the course of their exile, not to create weapons, not to establish dominance, but because, they explained simply, suffering is suffering regardless of what species experiences it. For the first time in recorded history, the assembled galactic intelligence found itself frozen, unable to respond with military doctrine or economic pressure or political maneuvering. They were faced with something they didn't have protocols for: unconditional kindness. The Aurora didn't force its way through the blockade. It waited, and in that wait, something shifted in the collective consciousness of the galaxy. The first to break ranks was, unexpectedly, a Silicon Mind designated analysis theta. Its statement was simple, logical, and devastating. The humans have demonstrated behavior patterns inconsistent with threat assessment models. They have provided technologies and medical solutions without requesting compensation, trade agreements, or political concessions. Their actions suggest a motivation classification outside our current frameworks. I recommend reclassification, not as a threat, not as a curio, but as something we should have tried harder to understand. One by one, the military vessels stood down. The trade stations opened their channels. The research collectives began preparing docking bays. And finally, the barrier was lifted. As the Aurora descended toward the primary station, Treshael stood alone in the observation deck, his 3 eyes fixed on the ancient vessel. An aide approached cautiously. "Sir, the first human delegation is requesting permission to come aboard. They're asking to speak to you specifically." Treshael turned, his mechanical arm whirring softly. "Why?" "They said." The aide paused, checking his tablet. "They said they wanted to thank the species that remembered them, even if you'd all tried to forget. When the humans arrived, first contact in 20 millennia, they were not what the galaxy expected. They were patient. They were humble. They asked questions more than they made demands. And when Treshael finally asked them directly, "Why return? Why not simply thrive in your own corner of the universe?" The human ambassador, a woman whose name was Dr. Sarah Chun, smiled with an expression that seemed to contain entire epochs. "Because," she said, "you're all still out here, and being human means we can't just abandon people we care about, even if it took us 20,000 years to find our way back." In that moment, every algorithm in the galactic networks halted. Every military strategist paused their calculations. Every academic stopped their lectures. They had been gone so long that the galaxy had forgotten what hope looked like. And for the first time in recorded history, the galaxy truly understood what it truly meant to be human. If the story moved you, if you felt the weight of 20,000 years of silence, and the beauty of a species that never forgot to care, then subscribe for more human stories from the stars. Because the universe is vast, but humanity's heart is infinite. The stars are waiting,